Hey everybody, what's going on? Brendan Miller here, back with another video, and in this video, I am going to be fishing with 100 years worth of fishing lures. This should be fun. Come along for the ride. The first lure on this list comes from the 1920s. Lewis Johnson, in 1920, created a classic lure by simply soldering a hook onto the handle of a spoon, and thus, the Johnson Silver Minnow was born. Now, the unique thing about this spoon is that unlike other spoons, this spoon has a single hook design that is soldered onto the actual body of the spoon itself. Another thing that makes this spoon unique is the actual weed guard that is soldered on as well. The Johnson Silver Minnow does have a unique action in the water. It's got a beautiful wobble and flash, and like I said, the fact that this is weedless makes it very, very useful for fishing in shallow, weedy cover. So I'm gonna be fishing with the Silver Minnow at this pond right here. This is kind of a trip down memory lane because I used to fish this pond all the time. It's been in a lot of my videos and it's very nostalgic for me. This lure is also quite nostalgic because the Silver Minnow was one of the first spoons that I ever bought and fished with back in the day. So this is gonna be fun. Let's throw the bait around and see if we can't catch a bass. There we go. Good one. Oh yeah. Beautiful bass right there. Silver Minnow does it again. Nice bass right there. Sweet. This was one of the first spoons that I ever picked up in my fishing journey, and to this day, this bait still catches fish. Moving on to the 1930s, our next lure has been a classic for many years, and that is the classic Rapala floating minnow. This lure was originally designed by Laurie Rapala in 1936. He originally built his first model out of cork. He also used tin foil from chocolate bars to give the bait some flash. In my opinion, this is one of the most influential baits ever made. Jerk baits and stick baits owe a ton to this lure. This lure is very simple. It's not over-engineered. It has a basic bill in the front, 2 hooks, and a line tie, followed by 2 eyes and a reflective coating of some kind. The bait is made of balsa wood, which allows it to float, and I have to say the action of this bait is magical. It's got a beautiful side-to-side wobble that's not too aggressive, yet not too subtle. It really mimics a minnow swimming through the water, and I have found that a lot of times skittish or wary fish in pressured waters will hit this and ignore other lures. Beautiful little bass right there on the original floating minnow. There we go. Yep, another one. Ooh, smallie. Oh yeah. Let's go, dude. Oh, that's a nice one. Nice for this creek, at least. All right, check that out, guys. Beautiful little smallmouth on the ultralight. So much fun. Absolutely whaled that original floating minnow. This bait still catches fish. I really like the action on it. It's got a very kind of subtle, petite action that these fish seem to really enjoy. So there you have it, the Rapala floating minnow. I honestly forgot how much I love this bait, and I was kind of reminded again while fishing today and catching those fish. Again, this bait is very simple, and it just works. You get it out of the package, it runs true, and it just catches fish. Again, not over-engineered, very simple, yet crazy effective. Moving on to the 1940s, in 1949 in Akron, Ohio, shout out to the greatest state in the US, Nick Krem invented a lure in his basement that would go on to revolutionize the sport of fishing. That lure was the plastic worm. The plastic worm, it's safe to say, is one of the most popular fishing lures for largemouth bass, and this helped pave the way for a whole slew of soft plastic baits. This was the bait that started it all, right here. Now, this particular worm that I have in my hand is an original plastic worm by Nick Krem. This is sold by the Krem Bait Company. And as you can see, it's got a really cool paint job. I actually really like this. It has a very natural worm-like color to it, which I think is sick. The plastic still feels great. It's got a nice limber profile. And let me just say, even though this is an older design, this bait still catches fish to this day. There we go. Hey, we got one. Little guy. Classic worm does it again. Put it on a drop shot, fish it weightless, fish it wacky style, fish it on a shaky head, fish it on the surface, fish it on the bottom. Whatever you want to do with this thing, it will catch fish, and it will go on catching fish for many years to come. The plastic worm is truly a watershed moment in the sport of bass fishing and in fishing in general, and it's all thanks to Nick Krem. Thanks, Nick. In 1952, Charlie Clark invented a lure that would go on to be named by Field and Stream as one of the best lures of all time. That lure was the Little Cleo. And I have to say, I agree with Field and Stream. The Little Cleo is my absolute favorite spoon when it comes to fishing. This bait has such a great action in the water. You can cast it a country mile. It comes in some really nice colors, and it catches fish. Anything from smallmouth to trout to northern pike. This bait can catch it all. Like I said, this is my favorite spoon that I've ever fished with. The Little Cleo is a staple in my tackle box. Got one. We're on, boys. Ooh-wee. Come here, buddy. Nice bass right there, guys. Look at that. On the Little Cleo, man. I tell you what, Little Cleo's still doing work. The thing that makes this lure so good, in my opinion, is the action. This bait has a really aggressive, throbbing, wiggling action that calls fish in from a long way. It also puts off a beautiful flash in the water, and the great thing about this bait is that you can actually fish it fairly slow, and it's still going to have a fairly aggressive action, which is hard to find in spoons. One of my favorite fishing lures of all time. It's always in my tackle box for good reason. The Little Cleo is dynamite. Moving on to the 1970s, we have a lure that I consider to be one of the greatest ever created. In 1972, Glenn Carver created a lure that would go on to revolutionize the sport of fishing. That lure was the Mr. Twister, or as we call it, the curly tail grub. This lure, like I said, is one of my favorites to throw. If I have this on a pole, I feel very confident I can catch something. Again, this lure catches so many different fish. You can catch walleye, smallmouth, bass, pike, crappie, bluegill. The list goes on and on. This lure is so good. It comes in many different sizes and many different colors. I took this lure out to a river where I love to fish for smallmouth, and it did not disappoint. There we go. Got him. Curly tail grub, baby. Easy pickings. Sweet. There we go. Got him. Big one. Biggin. Massive smallie. On the jig head. Caught him right in front of me. Oh my word, it's a big one. Let's go, dude. Where you going, bud? He's right on my feet. Very nice. That's a better smallmouth right there. The Mr. Twister's compact design, coupled with a beautiful tail that flutters effortlessly through the water, creates a combination that is truly dynamite for most predatory fish. Hey guys, just want to let you know real quick, if you are interested in purchasing any of the lures featured in today's video, you can do so via YouTube shopping. It's featured right here on this side of the screen or down close to the description in a little bar. Again, if you use any of those links, I get a little bit of kickback, and it helps me to continue to make content like this. All right, back to the video. In 1975, a lure was created by Bobby Garland, and eventually it was introduced to the bass fishing scene in 1982, and this lure would go on to be a favorite among bass fishermen and myself personally. I absolutely love this lure. What lure am I talking about? The soft plastic tube. I absolutely love the soft plastic tube. It was one of the first soft plastics that I started fishing with back in the day. And this lure is so versatile. You can do so much with it. You can rig it on a Texas rig, fish it down deep. You can belly weight it and kind of fish it like a soft plastic jerkbait. You can fish it weedless on top of mats like a frog. You can put it on a drop shot. You can put it on a shaky head. You can do a lot with it. This bait is absolutely incredible. The profile is very unique. It has a soft, hollow body with a finesse skirt out the back. And I have to say, the action of this bait under the water is absolutely stunning. It can imitate anything from a crawfish down on the bottom to an injured bluegill or bait fish. And that's one of the reasons why I love the tube so much. So versatile, comes in tons of colors, and you can fish it so many different ways. The tube is a fish catching machine. Another one. Feisty little boogers. Little Jehu. Here we go. Another one. Here we go. Nice little guy. Nice little guy on the weightless tube. Thank you, Bobby Garland, for creating such a fantastic lure. 2010 was the year when bass fishing legend Kevin Van Dam collaborated with Strike King to bring us the KVD 1.5. Now, if you've watched this channel for any period of time, you know that I am a huge fan of the KVD 1.5. I think it's the best square bill crankbait ever made. I have caught so many fish on this bait. Bass absolutely love it. I cannot recommend this bait enough. It comes in a variety of sizes. This is one of the smaller sizes right here, which is really great for fishing smaller creeks and rivers. Got it. On the KVD 1.5, man, this thing does work. Whew. The thing that makes the KVD 1.5 so special is the action that the square bill gives this bait. This bait has a beautiful wobbling action in the water. It puts off a lot of flash and a lot of vibration. The real magic, though, happens when you fish this bait around rocks or stumps or tree limbs. When it hits a piece of structure, the square bill allows this bait to ricochet off in an unpredictable pattern that can a lot of times trigger a strike. The KVD 1.5 is one bait that I have in my tackle box at all times. It catches fish in rivers, in lakes, all over the place. As you can see right here, I took it out to the same river where I was catching smallmouth and smoked a really nice largemouth on the KVD 1.5. It's a very versatile bait, my favorite crankbait of all time, the KVD 1.5. Thank you, Kevin Van Dam, for this amazing bait. And that brings us to present day. As of recording this video, this bait right here is one of the newest baits from Berkley Power Bait. It's called the Power Switch. The design of this bait is very simple. The head of this bait is actually hard and it is weighted. We have two nice eyes right here and then a soft plastic body that slowly tapers down to a fine paddle tail at the end. I was initially very intrigued with this bait. I love fishing the Berkley Gulp minnow on a jig head and I thought this could be a little different approach to that same design. This bait's primary action under the water is that of a darting minnow. When you pop your rod tip, this bait veers off in all kinds of random directions and it has a really nice darting look to it. This bait is specifically made for jigging. You can throw it out and pop your rod tip and this bait's gonna dart in a very erratic action that simulates a fleeing minnow. I was initially very optimistic about this bait. I felt like I could go out to the river here and absolutely crush smallmouth with it, but upon actually using it, I found it to be a little bit more disappointing than I initially thought. For this particular river that I am fishing here today, this bait proved to be not as effective as I initially thought. The main problem I had is the fact that this bait is quite heavy, so it actually wants to sit close to the bottom. This river, by and large, is only around 2 or 3 feet deep. I found it quite difficult to keep this bait up in the middle of the water column. It wanted to ground out on the bottom and get snagged. However, I was able to catch a nice smallmouth bass with this bait, as you can see right here, and I do think it is a decent lure. However, this bait would definitely shine better in a deeper water scenario, fishing it down on the bottom for walleye or saugeye, or hovering it over structure and letting this little tail quiver. Overall, I could have done better just fishing a Berkley Gulp minnow on a jig head versus using this thing. Well guys, I have to say I had a lot of fun fishing with 100 years worth of fishing lures. My favorite lure out of all of the lures that I tried, it has to be a tie between the Little Cleo and the curly tail grub. Those two are just staples in my tackle box. I absolutely love fishing with them. I can see why they are classics. It's because they work time and time again. Again, if you guys are interested in purchasing any of the baits featured in this video, they will be linked down in the description and in the side right here. Click on those links, and if you buy one of those lures, I get a little bit of kickback and it helps support the channel. This video took a long time to make, so if you enjoyed it, leave a like, a comment, and maybe share it with a friend that you know will enjoy it. Again, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay hooked. I'll see you later.